Hello, I'm Lee. I'm going to be doing a live chat this afternoon and live trance, hopefully. But today's topic is going to be all about how you can go into trance on your own, so self-hypnosis. And we're going to cheat so that you can get there more easily on your own from now on. Because not being able to go into trance is a huge problem for a lot of people. And not knowing how to go into trance or what it feels like is a big thing that a lot of people literally don't understand. Hey, Jordan. So, if more people know how to go into trance on their own and can go into trance on their own successfully, there are things that they can do with giving themselves suggestions that can be super helpful because you can't always find a hypnotist or a file for exactly what you want. So if you can find a way to do it yourself, that's pretty good, right? Aw, thanks so much. So today, we'll see if a few more people pop in, and if they want to join in, that's great. But today is going to be all about how do you know when you're in trance? How do you get there on your own? What can you do to make it more effective for yourself? And things like that. So I really appreciate that. That's great. I love having people letting me know what they think I'm doing right. Also, I'm wearing something very shiny today, so I hope you appreciate all the shine. I mean, I try to always wear something shiny. So, and yeah, I'd say it's probably for 9 hours. That's a long time to go into a trance for. I mean, if you have the time and it doesn't matter, it's not harming anything. Um, but I do think it's funny how different people respond differently. Like some people have a really hard time dropping into trance and they don't know what it means and they don't know how to do it. And other people go like they were, a rock just fell. So, yeah. So, but if you're here and you're paying attention, hi, hello, thanks for being here. I'm going to, yeah, try and hypnotize you all with a shine just to start with. I mean, again, talk about cheating to get somebody into a trance, and I think that that's what sometimes you need. Like some people learn best by doing, and it's hard to know what trance feels like if you have never been there. If you think you've never been there, or you've never actually consciously decided to go into trance, or you have and you were like, I don't know if this is working, um, it can be really challenging. So any helpful way that I can help somebody focus on something, sound of my voice, something that they're doing, something shiny, whatever it is, um, I think that that's just a helpful way to help you cheat yourself into going into trance on your own. But if you're here and you're paying attention, what I'd like you to do right now, and you've probably seen this before, and that's okay if you have. You're going to put your hands together, clasp them, and you're going to take your index fingers and you're going to stretch them out, hold them as far about that far, right? And you're just going to imagine. So that's a tricky word, right? When I say imagine, I mean use any and all of the senses you have to help you understand the metaphor behind this, which is basically to imagine that there is a magnet of opposite poles on each of your fingers and it is being pulled together, right? Now, some people, like that's one of the most classic ways to do it. So when I do that, I just sort of stare through them and I watch and I feel like I can feel like a little ticking motion, especially in my right hand, as my right finger gently moves toward my left. And sometimes I can feel it in my left, but they definitely move closer and closer. I am not doing this on any sort of conscious level. My unconscious mind is guiding those together. And as they get closer and closer together, I might start to talk a little bit less because I am definitely going into trance while my fingers are getting closer and closer. Some people experience this thing where they don't actually touch. They just get closer and closer, but I can still feel it's like a little tick as my finger gets closer. There it goes again to the other one. You may not have the same kind of joints I do, and your fingers may end up not actually touching each other, right? You may end up with just this little space. If you end up with that little space, you might notice that it doesn't matter. And as you find yourself staring, oh, there we go. As you find yourself staring at the space between your fingers as they come together, that you may find yourself in a trance state already. Whether or not it's the deepest level of trance you've ever been in, it doesn't matter. Because the important thing is that this is a thing that you can do on your own, like I just did on my own. This is a thing that you can do on your own to drop yourself into trance. Now, if you're like, oh, well, it doesn't matter, I can't feel any different. Sometimes, especially when you start out, the things that you feel are very, very subtle. Not everyone is going to have that little, it's like I've got arthritis or something suddenly, I don't know. But it's like I can feel like this little tick, 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 tick of this finger, particularly in the joint, as it moves closer. A lot of people, when they are allowing their unconscious mind to give you an ideomotor response, that's what it's called, when you have an unconscious muscle movement, it's called an ideomotor response, that you can sometimes feel it and sometimes you can't. Like I've done things like this with people and I've asked them to lift their hand or their finger and they have no idea that they have done that. And so sometimes when I am doing a regular trance session and I am doing my very best to take somebody as deeply in trance as they possibly can, they've never been hypnotized before. This happens really often. I will have them raise one of their hands up unconsciously. Their unconscious mind gets to choose which hand and arm are going to feel light, are going to start to rise up, right? And then if they are brand new to trance, you often hear this, like you see stage magicians doing this, and you might see other people doing this, but they call them convincers. It's so that you can know that you have been in trance. So what I will sometimes do is like someone's in trance, their arm is rising up, and then their eyes are closed, and I have them open their eyes and look at their hand right there in front of their face. And I tell them that the moment they see their hand, the moment they're aware of it, they can send that information to their conscious self. So their conscious self is aware that they're in trance, that they're doing a good job, and that then they can close their eyes, drop even deeper, and continue to let that hand rise up, right? So that's how I do it. That may or may not be how anybody else does it, but I do it that way because it helps me. When you watch a lot of people go into trance, you can usually tell if somebody is faking it or if their unconscious is actually paying attention to what you're saying and responding to what you're saying. Everyone's a little different, so different people move in different ways. But when you see it happen enough, you get to recognize what an arm rising up when somebody is in a trance looks like. It is very different than if somebody is trying to pretend they are in a trance, or if somebody isn't in a trance and is just raising their arms. Now, now, sometimes, sometimes when somebody is so good at being in trance, they can get themselves to a place where they look just like I am, where they look like they're not in a trance at all, and everything happens really quickly, really smoothly. So it is not the only indication that somebody is in a deep state of trance, but it is an indication that somebody can be in a deep state of trance. So if for some reason your fingers going together is a thing that you find you have a really hard time with. You can also do something like staring at a crystal or staring at something shiny or staring at a flame. Be careful if you're staring at a real flame, don't knock it over, obviously. But your brain has this ability to keep you engaged and focused on a thing. So I will tell you that one of the first, the first time I hypnotized somebody, I was using an iPhone. There was an app on Apple Store called Hypnotizer, I think, and that particular that particular app, which I do not know if it is still available or not, but it was a bunch of flipping colored squares. So just all on your phone, flipping different colors. And that particular app may still be available, or other apps may still be available. So as long as you have something that you can find yourself looking at, if you're a visual kind of person, that may be very helpful. If you are not a visual person, you may find that like a metronome or some other kind of repetitive sound is helpful for getting you to focus in trance. Like you could find yourself listening, find something online that works, that allows you to get to this point where your brain's just like, "Ooh, I'm really getting into that." Like maybe you close your eyes and you just hear that sound. And before long, that sound is the only thing you can hear. And if it's the only thing you can hear, and your intent is to go into a trance state, your unconscious mind can let that happen. So, are you in trance yet? If you're not, that's okay. Let's think of some other ways that you can find yourself going into trance. And the reason why I call it cheating is that if you find yourself going into trance for any reason that you can find yourself consciously aware of, and again, a lot of people who are new are not consciously aware of the trance. You need to learn what it feels like for you to go into trance. There, for me at any rate, for a lot of other people that I hypnotize, there is a definitive sense or feeling that you have that you are no longer conscious. Now, for some people, feeling that is enough to take them out of that state that they were in. It makes them go, oh, I'm awake and that's it, and I'm never going to go back there again, which isn't necessarily true, but if you tell yourself the same things often enough, it could be true. So let yourself think, wow, I did a really great job. I could feel that I was in trance, and even though I came out of it, I can get myself back to that place. Knowing that you can, in fact, get yourself back to that place is really good, because of course you can, right? When I talk to people, even though you may at a conscious level be hearing me right now, I am almost always talking to your unconscious mind, because your unconscious self is the part of you that is, especially with people who have a hard time doing hypnosis, whether on their own or by somebody else or by an audio, they have a hard time understanding that they're in a trance because their conscious self has been so used to being the one in charge. Now, that's great. That's what we want most of the time. But if you want to actually go into trance, you have to allow your unconscious mind to come to the front. It's got to take over on some level. It's got to start doing the things, and it's got to pay attention. And it has to be, maybe it doesn't have to be, but in my experience, it is way better if you can notice that you can thank and appreciate your unconscious mind for what it does. It's like if you were a kid and your unconscious is often referred to as like, stuck at a childlike level. I don't know if I agree with that, but that's how some psychologists refer to the unconscious. And certainly a lot of things that we do unconsciously have been there since childhood. But the more you talk to your unconscious as though it is a valuable and important part of you, the better it responds, in my experience. And I know I might say that a lot. What does that mean? What's your experience, and how do you find yourself, even saying these things? I've been doing hypnosis for about 14 years, I think. And because I've been doing hypnosis for so long, when you hypnotize a lot of people, a lot of the same things come up over and over and over again. So let's see, how else can you find that you're going to hypnotize somebody? How else can you find that you can hypnotize yourself? So first of all, do pay attention to when you have a success. If you find yourself thinking that you dropped into trance and it was so exciting and then you came out of it, if you thank your unconscious mind and say, let's do that again, let's do it for longer this time, your unconscious mind is usually paying attention and can say, okay, great. But if on a conscious level you just keep telling yourself that you can't do a thing, if you keep, responding in a way that makes it hard for your unconscious self to feel appreciated, they may literally stop responding to you, which is a shame. They're going to keep doing what they've always done. And a lot of hypnosis is about change and how we can affect positive change in ourselves. So if you find a way to thank your unconscious mind for making a change for you, whether that change is, oh, I could feel that I was dropping into trance, or I felt like I wasn't really here, or, oh, I experienced amnesia for the course of this thing. The more you thank your unconscious self, the better and stronger your future attempts are likely to be. So find something to stare at if that's going to be helpful to you. Find something to listen if that's going to be helpful to you. Allow your physical responses to simply gets faster, and the more I do it, the less I think about it and the less I talk about doing it, the faster it is for me to just let it happen and to drop deeply into trance. So I'm very good at dropping myself down into trance and coming back up. Hi, John. Thanks for being here. So the more you find yourself doing even that little thing, even if you can like do this over and over and over again until you feel your fingers just coming together. Now that I'm not talking about it and I'm just letting it happen, it's much faster. My fingers go together much faster. So just pay attention to how you find yourself responding and how good it's going to be for you, right? Because this is, you don't hypnotize yourself to make your life worse. You hypnotize yourself because there's something more better that you want for yourself, and this is how we're going to get it. So, all right. So if you haven't already followed along with me, if you haven't already done that to yourself, now is your time to do it. We're going to do it again. We might do it a bazillion more times. I don't know. But you're going to put your hands together. You're going to open them up like this. If you're already in trance, go ahead and do it again. It's not going to hurt you. Just stare in between. Let your fingers be pulled together as though they were magnets on opposite fingertips. Stare at the space in between. Feel the way it feels as your fingers get closer together. And as they touch, you can find yourself dropping deeply into trance. And as you find yourself dropping deeply into trance, you might be thinking, okay, now what? I'm here. What do I do? How do I go on from this? Well, first of all, you're just going to enjoy this state for a bit. You're going to enjoy this state where your unconscious self is doing the heavy lifting and your conscious self gets to drift further and farther away. I'm very good at going into trance and to talk and to do things while I'm in trance. I don't do a lot of stuff, but I can sit here and talk to you guys while I'm deeply in trance. So let your unconscious mind do what it can to drop you deeply into trance. And then I'm going to count from 1 to 10, and you're going to all find yourself wide awake again. Why am I doing that? That's fractionation. We're going to talk about that a little bit more too. So wide awake on 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Deep breath in, wide awake. Okay, so fractionation is when you go into trance, come up out of trance, or come up less than deeply in trance and then go back down again. Every time you go back down deeply into trance again, especially in a short period of time, you do it better and faster than you have before. So Milton Erickson discovered this. I believe it was him that discovered it. He would have sessions with patients like once a month. Not enough. Once a week. Not enough. You do the same thing in an hour and you can get much further with somebody because they're going to go deeper into trance every time. And the more deeply in trance you go, so anyway, the more deeply in trance you go, the more theoretically you should be able to do with somebody. It is possible to go too deeply in trance. If you're working with a professional, they should be able to figure out how deeply in trance you are and if that is enough, if you need to go deeper to get stuff done. However, human beings accept suggestion all the time. You do not need to be in any sort of trance state to accept a suggestion. You literally just need to be human to accept suggestion, and that's fine. So let's talk about how you can find yourself using fractionation to get better at going deeply into trance for self-hypnosis, right? So whether or not you're putting your fingers together, staring at them or through them, feeling the pull, feeling them pull together, and then dropping deeply into trance, when you do that, you feel what that's like. Embrace what that feels like for you because everybody is going to be different. It's just how it is. Everyone's not going to feel exactly the same thing as somebody else. So, whatever you feel, it's great. Just say, thank you, unconscious mind. Sometimes I literally pat myself on the head when my unconscious mind has done something that I appreciate, that I approve of, that I think is amazing or wonderful. Does it sound silly? Sure, but it does help me to keep moving forward with all the things that I need to get done. And I think that's very helpful for me. So, I'm going to keep doing it. I encourage you to appreciate your unconscious mind in whichever way works best for you. So put your fingers together, go into trance, and then give yourself even, 30 seconds to feel what that feels like, if you can do that. And then count up to 3 or to 5 or to 10. Bring yourself all the way wide awake, and then do it again, and then do it again, and then do it again. And you might be saying, but Lee, what does that mean? I'm just dropping into trance and it does nothing for me. Well, first of all, you're training yourself with fractionation to go into trance and to feel what it feels like. The more you know what it feels like, the easier it is for you to return there. So when you know what it feels like and you understand how easy it is for you to get back there, as long as it's safe and appropriate, your unconscious mind can make that happen when you want to. There may be other things going on that prevent you from doing it at any given time, but you can also feel how simple it can be to get there. Like, honestly, this is so simple, right? And to just let yourself drop. So, the more you find yourself in that state of just giving in to how good it can be to go deeply into trance, to experience what it feels like, to enjoy how good it feels to be there, the more likely you are to get better and better at it. Like, some people are like, oh, I don't want to practice, I don't do it. Well, that's tough. It involves practice. And the more you find yourself practicing things, the better you're going to get. And honestly, trance feels so good. You probably have heard the deeper you go, the more pleasure you feel. The more pleasure you feel, the deeper you go. Now, pleasure is not necessary for trance. It's not necessary for a lot of things, but pleasure feels good. We get rewards chemically in our brain when we do things that are pleasurable for us. So when you do those things that feel good and you give yourself a reward for it, you're more likely to keep doing it. And if you're more likely to keep doing it, you're more likely to get all the benefits out of it. So let your unconscious mind think about how easy it can be for you to go into trance and then to do it over and over and over again. For you to take that fractionation, for you to use fractionation as a tool so that you can keep going into trance. So now you're like, okay, I can go into trance real easily. I know what it feels like in my body. I can stay there for as long as I want. I can come up easily and I feel great because trance feels really great. But how do I make it so that I can give myself suggestions and have them take effect? So remember how before I talked about ideomotor responses, and I think that those are very helpful um, when you're doing self-hypnosis. So what's a thing that you might find yourself wanting to do hypnosis for? Now, I think, especially if you're brand new to hypnosis, you don't want to start out with this big, long, blah, 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 I want to do all these things, right? You want to pick one small little thing. So maybe like you're the kind of person who forgets to do a certain thing on a certain day, and that certain day happens to be tomorrow. And you just want to be able to remember to do that stupid thing, whatever it is. Now, you think it's stupid, but it has to get done, so it's not that stupid, right? So, what I would do, there's a couple ways I would do it. I might either just tell myself, okay, before I go into a trance, my unconscious mind knows that I want to work on this particular issue. I want to remember tomorrow at this point in time, at this whatever time it is, that I need to do this thing. So I would like my unconscious mind maybe 5 minutes before, 2 minutes before, whatever works for you. I want my unconscious mind to remind me 2 minutes before I have to do this thing that I have to go do it so I can just get up and go do it. Useful, right? So you basically put yourself into a state of trance. And you tell yourself that you want to get up 2 minutes before you have to, or your unconscious mind alerts you 2 minutes before you need to do this thing, that you're going to do it. You've either written it down or you've just said it to yourself, and you drop deeply into trance. And you go pretty deeply in trance because every next time you go into trance, you can go deeper than the time before because it's like a pathway that you're clearing out in your unconscious mind can understand how good it feels to clear that pathway out so that you can get to that depth of trance more and more easily. And then your unconscious self will keep you in that state of trance until you've done that thing. You just basically say to your unconscious, as soon as you have made that condition happen, as soon as you have said yes, as soon as your unconscious mind says yes to making sure that tomorrow, 5 minutes before you need to do this thing, it reminds you or makes you go do the thing, whatever, that as soon as your unconscious mind says, yes, I'm going to do this, it will wake you back up, or it will allow you to wake yourself back up. Or you can, so is being awakened by yourself an ideomotor response? I don't know. But the other thing you can do is actually give yourself an ideomotor response. So you might like start out with a clenched fist, and you might have your hand, go flat on your desk. Like you start out with a fist and then your hand goes flat, or just relaxes a little bit, or does it the other way around. Maybe you have your palm up and then, your fingers are sort of curled, and then you just notice that they all curl into a fist as your unconscious mind says yes. As soon as your unconscious mind has said yes to you doing this suggestion that you've given yourself, your hand clenches into a fist and you find yourself waking up. So these are really simple ways that you can find yourself becoming good at going into self-hypnosis, going into trance yourself, and beginning to give yourself the programming that you're probably looking for. Because if you want to do self-hypnosis, it might be a thing that maybe you don't have enough money to hire a hypnotist. Maybe you want to find yourself doing this because you want to get good at hypnosis in general, and you want to be able to do it to other people, or you have a session coming up and you want to like prepare yourself for it. You can totally do that. So, John, you're absolutely right. You can visualize the place you'll be in, so to trigger yourself. So, I don't mention that sort of thing right off the bat because some people have a hard time visualizing things, or they think they have a hard time visualizing things. There's very few people that actually have antiphasia. That's what it's called when you can't actually make those pictures in your head. But there are people that cannot do that. So, I like to start out with something that most people should be able to do. But yes, one of the things you can absolutely do, say if you have you've got a job interview tomorrow and you want to crush it, right? You want to get the job. You can imagine yourself, even if you don't know it exactly, you can imagine being in that place with, whoever is on the other side of the table, and who's asking you questions. And you can have your unconscious mind, um, imagine that as fully as you can, whether or not it's quite correct. Your brain is flexible. It can understand that it doesn't have to be exactly this. And you can imagine that you can realize that you are going to answer all the questions correctly. You're going to just crush it. You're going to knock it out of the park. You're going to give your best response. You're going to be on your best, whatever corporate behavior you need to be on to impress the people that are there. You're going to give the responses that are corporate appropriate, or whatever the kind of job is. And you're going to allow yourself to not give out too much information, to not, say silly things, to simply be the best you that you can be based on what you've got. You can allow your unconscious mind to set that all up for you, so that when you go into that, when your unconscious mind just imagines you doing all the right things that allow you to get that job, you can go in there, and then the moment you sit down and you shake their hand or whatever, like that mode kicks in and your brain is like, okay, we're focused on doing everything that we can in order to make sure that you get this job. I like to set tasks for the brain, because I feel like when the unconscious mind gets used to doing things that are small, that then it can start to do things that are bigger. I think that's a really big thing for the unconscious mind to know. Like, you always want to start out crawling before you walk, before you run. Sometimes people go into hypnosis and they think, oh, it's this magical thing, and you say this magical phrase, and all of a sudden I've lost 100 pounds by tomorrow, and I no longer smoke, and I'm a really good saver, and I'm excellent at my job, or I've started my own company, or whatever it is. I'm going to remind you when I say these things that there is sometimes work that has to get done, that has to get put into doing these things so that your brain is ready. And sometimes your unconscious self's response to you saying, I want to lose weight, is to change how you eat or move. Because sometimes those things can make a big difference in our appearance and in what the scale says. But you can also discover that um, you don't have to just let it go if things don't work out right away, right? Because again, that whole walking before we run thing, very important to learn how to do the things that allow us to get to where we want to go. So let's practice going into trance again, shall we? Now, this is pretty shiny, right? This is pretty shiny. I don't know if you can all see it. And there might be some weird latency. But if you like to focus on shiny things, I'm just going to sway a little bit. And maybe your unconscious mind can stare at the shiny And as it stares at the shiny, you can find yourself realizing that your unconscious mind is counting all the little sparklies, and that when you get to a certain number, and I don't know what that number is, but when your unconscious mind gets to a certain number, you can just drop deeply into trance. You can drop deeply into trance with your eyes open, or you can drop deeply into trance with your eyes closed. It doesn't matter to me, and it really shouldn't matter to you. Sometimes people ask me if they should be lying down while they're going into trance, and I usually say absolutely not. I say that you should sit up or be in some kind of reclining position at best. Sometimes we are so exhausted and we don't even know it. So if we lie down to try to do hypnosis, we actually just go to sleep, which is a fine place to be. Don't get me wrong, I love sleep very, very much. But I think for hypnosis, sitting up or at least reclining is a better place for you to be in. So when your unconscious mind has counted enough of these shiny things to drop you deeply into trance, let it just drop you deeply into trance. And allow your unconscious mind to think about what it means for you to know that you are good at going into trance. Let your unconscious mind think about how good it can be for you to go deeply into trance, how nice it can feel, how accomplishing it can be for you to go into trance, because your purpose of going into trance is probably to change your mind, to change a behavior, something like that. And when you find yourself accomplishing those things, your brain just feels really great. It's that reward that I talked about earlier. Your unconscious mind likes knowing that you can reward yourself for doing the things that are good for you, right? Because sometimes the things that are good for us we don't always love. But if your brain is automatically rewarding you for doing the things that are good for you might discover that you do the things that are good for you more often. So whether you're deeply in trance right now or you're about to get there with all the shine, whether your eyes are open or closed, allow your unconscious mind to think about you wanting to go into trance on your own. Your unconscious mind can think about how good it's going to be for you to go into trance on your own, for you to learn what it feels like in your body, for you to go into trance on your own, for you to give yourself a little note and to say, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z tomorrow or every day from now on or whatever. Don't set yourself up for failure. If it's not an everyday thing that you can actually do, don't worry about it. If it's like just remembering to brush your teeth twice a day, you can probably remember to do that. But if it's like, go for a 5 mile run, let's work up to that. But however you find yourself doing these things, whether you write a note or you just think it before you drop yourself into trance, your unconscious mind can know that you can also give yourself a trigger. What's a trigger? So a trigger is when you find yourself having something, a phrase, a sound, something that's really specific that is not likely to happen all of the time, so that your unconscious mind knows that it is going to only respond in those specific instances where this is actually what you want. So your brain can say, okay, here's this trigger. When I say this phrase, and I'm in a safe environment and it's okay for me to go into trance right now, then it's going to happen. So think of a phrase or think of a word or think of something that you'd like to find. Like maybe it's, I don't know, tossing something from one hand to the other. Maybe that's your trigger. And when that happens, you can drop deeply into trance. Whatever your trigger is, whatever your word is, whatever your thing is, let yourself think about that right now. And as you find yourself in that state of thinking about whatever your trigger could be or should be, allow your brain to just go, okay, as long as it's safe and appropriate, I can say this or do this thing and I will drop deeply into trance. Maybe it's this. Maybe it's something like that, I don't know. But whatever you can find yourself doing, allow that phrase, that word, that action to take you down deeply into trance. Is again something you're probably going to have to find yourself practicing. So hold on to what that is. Hold on to what that phrase is that should take you back down to that level of trance you've been in for the last couple of moments or so. And then every next time you go into trance, you can go deeper into trance until you are, or maybe you always are, at the perfect level of trance for the suggestions you give yourself to have the most powerful, profound, positive impact, right? So take a deep breath in. Come on up on the count 5, feeling great. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You've got your word, you've got your phrase, you've got your trigger action, whatever it happens to be. Go ahead and use that right now and let yourself just drop back down into trance. Notice that you can find yourself doing this over and over again. You can drop down deeply into trance. You may or may not have something that you want to find yourself working on right now. If you do, awesome. If you don't, it's okay. Just take a nice deep breath in. On the count of 5, find yourself coming all the way back up. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So easy peasy, right? And as you find yourself coming up, your brain knows that, especially now, because you've hopefully been going into trance so many times, that your brain can by now drop you down more deeply into trance. So I use a phrase when I work with clients. I use a phrase in my audios so that people can hear that phrase and they can drop deeply into trance. But these are not open triggers. You cannot just expect that you can have this trigger and anyone can use it, because that is unsafe. And I am very, very interested in making sure that the people that I do hypnosis with can take care of themselves. Like, it's really important that you have the ability to take care of yourself, to feel how good it is to take care of yourself when you're in trance, and to accept the suggestions that you want. So I have made some audios about accepting, rejecting, and adjusting suggestions that you've been given, so that your subject agency is, you know, there to take care of you. I don't say you're unconscious, I don't say you're a watcher, that you are there as a whole person to take care of all of yourself. So your brain is a big, important part of your body. You want to make sure that you are doing the very best job for it that you possibly can. So when you find that trigger phrase, or that whatever it happens to be, and you've given yourself a suggestion, I want this to happen. This is how I phrase suggestions, and I'll probably do another audio at some point in time about how to make suggestions really strong and really powerful for you. I've taught classes on that before, but let's talk about what that means right now. So um, it's it's suggested that you always um, use positive phrasing, but always doesn't really fit with the way people do hypnosis, and negatives can be just as powerful. As long as your unconscious mind can understand what it is that you want to do, it can agree to do those things. So find your suggestion, hold it in, tell yourself what you want to do, tell yourself what you're gonna what your unconscious mind is going to how it's going to react when you've made this suggestion. Whether you're going to find yourself saying, yes, I've done this, or done, or just coming out of trance going, yes. Like, those are all valid ways that your unconscious mind can tell you that it has agreed to do the thing you're going to do and will do the thing you're going to do. Those are 2 important steps, and I always try to have both of them. So your suggestion is going to be, tomorrow at X time, this will happen. I will do this. And you pay attention to the way that your unconscious mind can make sure that that's what you do. And then you check it out. You make sure that tomorrow at that time, that that's what you've done. Maybe you want to start out with something simple that you have to do, like, I don't know, putting out the trash, doing some dishes, finishing up some homework or some study that you're working on, finishing this book, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. Maybe you've been watching a TV series and you've got like 1 episode to go and you're like, I keep putting it off. I don't know why. Maybe it's something as simple as going to watch that. Doesn't matter what it is, you want to train your unconscious mind to do what you're going to tell it to do when you're deeply entranced yourself, and then to do the thing. And then when it's done the thing, you're going to praise it. So I hope you've learned something from this today. I hope your unconscious mind has responded well, that you have gone into trance, that you have found a way to ensure that you are going to know how to put yourself in trance from now on. I have another video that talks about this that's much shorter, so I'm going to find that and link that in the description for this video as soon as all the stars have aligned. And as soon as I can make that happen, I encourage you to watch that one too, because it's a little shorter, but it has some of the same content. And it talks about ways you can phrase your suggestions, but it's a shorter thing. So if you are still paying attention to me, find yourself wide awake on the count of 10. Let me know what you thought of this audio or this video, depending on if your eyes are open or closed. And let me know what it is that you're going to find yourself doing to make sure that you can go into self-hypnosis on your own and that you can have success with suggestions. So wide awake on 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Taking a nice deep breath. Opening up your eyes. 8, 9, maybe stretching a little bit, and 10. All the way back. So thanks for paying attention. I really appreciate that you were here. I would love it if you would like or subscribe. It's up to you. But have a great day, and I'll talk to you again. Um, I'll talk to you again another day. Thanks.